Good morning and welcome to the Ways and Means of October 11th. Let's start with a pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome and thank you for being here on this beautiful October day. We have the agenda in front of us. Your wishes? Moved by Lassenheiser, supported by DeRocha. The agenda, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And we have our minutes from September the 13th. Rogers, DeRocha, questions or comments? Yes.
I was glancing through the minutes the other day, and at the beginning where it indicates who was president, who wasn't, listed me as chairman. As we all know, I never turn down power, but I'm not the chairman of this committee.
Okay. Given that,
Melissa will correct that.
it will be corrected. Thank you.
I just think somebody was trying to make me feel good, and I appreciate the thought.
We'll do it again next month then.
Yep. Honorary, Joe. Yep. You can hang it up in your office.
If I had an office.
But December, all you get is honorable mention.
Okay, limited public comment.
January, everybody.
Another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Human Resources.
We probably still should vote on the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we voted.
All those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Yes, we did move it. I moved it and then was interrupted.
And I interfered, saw something shiny.
All right, so Human Resources update. I'm going to do a positions update. It's going to be abbreviated just because we have a lot on the agenda. So we filled 8 positions this month. We have 10 posted, of which 1 is new. 5 of them are tied to continual requisitions, openings that have gone unfilled with the prosecutor's office, sheriff's office, department, and the youth facility. There are 5 positions we're recommending due to people resigning and retiring. You know, go over this every month, so if anybody's watching this meeting and hasn't watched, you can go back to probably the last 14 Ways and Means minutes, meetings online. We'll talk about the hiring difficulties with law enforcement, the state of Michigan. But the quick recap is we have 13 openings at the Sheriff's Department. We have 3 deputies in field training, so it means they have to ride along with somebody else. So from a coverage standpoint, we're 16 positions down. And we have 11 in the academy, which is fantastic, leveraging state grants to get them trained and potentially on the road. But that's that. So that's the update.
Move that we fill the recommended positions.
Support.
Moved by Brailer, supported by DeRocha. Questions or comments? I'd like to just thank the sheriff for making it all happen to get all these recruits in. I mean, this is pretty cool. So, thank you. Good job. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Parks?
Okay, so this is a ongoing discussion. Work group made a recommendation to Public Works and Planning to this group, and it was voted to send out for analysis a restructure plan with the Parks Department. Since we've had that discussion on the record, I won't belabor the point much, but we did get the feedback from our consultant based on the job description changes in the restructure. So I'll go through the 3 positions that were authorized to be evaluated. This was using the reclassification process established in 2014, and the evaluations are attached. So first, the physical plant director, which facilities, Chad Powers, that position, based on adding the division, had a grade upgrade from an 11 to a 12.
Yeah, it doesn't show on the report what the previous grades were for those positions.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Well, no, because they're a new position, so it doesn't necessarily have a previous grade, but this one certainly did.
So,
Okay, 11 to 12.
Correct. And that would be a $4,368 change under the current scale. The next position, let me scroll down, so I do them in order as people are seeing them. Next position evaluated was currently a naturalist and was becoming deputy director naturalist, so it would retain functions similarly to how I'm human resources director and deputy administrator. The added duties based on that, there was no change, so this occurs sometimes because there's a scale and the points that were added for the new duties didn't bump it into another grade, so that would remain an 8. The next one, currently, the parks maintenance supervisor would be a parks operations supervisor that would act like an operations deputy, so then that way would report to the facilities director. That did come back with an evaluation up 1 grade, so that would go from grade 6 to grade 7. When a change like that occurs, you add 5% to the salary, and that's how you slot them into the new step. That's per policy. So the change on that would be $4,181 a year.
So Ben, when something like that happens, did they restart at step 1 then? Is that?
No, good question.
I never
Yeah.
actually understood
Yeah,
how the steps fit into the grades, and when you transfer over, what step you go into.
yeah.
It doesn't flow in my mind, but
Good, no, it's a good discussion point to have. So the grades, when you look at them in alignment, like step 1 of grade 7 is $48,297. So that's the reason by policy, what we do is we take what was your salary in your previous grade, you add 5%, whatever that is, when you move to the new grade, you get the closest step that you don't get a demotion essentially from a pay standpoint for taking on new duties.
so what happens when somebody moves over and they end up being in essentially the highest step and they got nowhere to go? So they're just there and they get the only increase they're gonna get is what overall employees get that year?
Correct, yep, and so facilities director is a good example of that, already being topped out. It just goes from step 7 of grade 11 to step 7 of grade 12. And there's no future growth apart from what the cost of living adjustments are.
So basically, we figure that they've learned all they can learn, they've got all the skill sets they need, and they're already in the top steps and.
Based on
I'm being
the, yeah.
sarcastic, but
Yeah,
that's-
based on the job duties and core functions of that job description and the model, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It just doesn't seem like it offers a lot of options for growth. But again, I've been involved in hiring and steps and training in my job forever, and I understand it's very, very difficult to make things equitable because everybody has a different idea where they belong and what the skills they need are, and it's a real can of worms always.
Well, it goes back to the fact that although Ben said this is 2014 study that was done, it goes back to a 2004 implementation of this type of study, right? So we've been utilizing that same point factor, same everything, and not doing a brand-new salary study. So again, it puts the county behind every other municipality who's done this and looking at it as a different point with market adjustments, local community adjustments, comparable adjustments. Since we haven't done that in such a long time, it's basically you're topping somebody out and there isn't room for growth. There's no other option. So you would have to actually develop a different model on how you do it. So, yeah, that's,
Commissioner
difficulty.
DeRosa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the funding source for these positions?
So the parks positions will remain funded by the parks because they're 100% doing parks work. And then I believe, did we have a discussion about the facilities director, if he's doing parks-related things? Is there a billing code to equalize, or were we just gonna leave it?
Leave it.
Yeah, so we would just
terms of-
leave facilities director not funded by the parks millage.
If there was a major, if there was a major project that Chad was working on, then that might be something, but the amount of work that he's going to do, the responsibility is increased, but to charge that on a percentage basis is gonna be too difficult. So taking it out of parks is just like moving the funding source.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and if he were, I mean, Chad does work in other areas that are funded separately, and we don't charge those areas separately for Chad's time. I mean, he just like IT is all over the county, in all different,
Right.
every sector of the county and every building, so. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Terrence?
Yeah, I've got a few questions on this. I'm a little perplexed at these studies and how they keep coming back. So Chad we're recommending that we upgrade his salary. I'm sorry, the physical plant position, we're recommending that we upgrade that salary by $4,000-ish. But yet, the addition of the parks is not warranting, we're saying he's not really getting a lot more duties. Yet, the deputy director, I assume, is getting some more duties. Maybe he's not, maybe we're just adding that title. There's a recommendation not to increase his pay at all.
So the reason for that is due to the fact that when the former naturalist was in there, that included a parks naturalist and operations manager. So when we removed the operations manager, when the former parks director was here and made it only naturalist, we didn't bump the position down.
Okay.
So that's why. So just to do it doesn't make sense, just to do that, when it doesn't fit into that point scale.
So are we adding, I mean, as far as that goes, to that position, are we just putting a title on, because there is an importance, and that's what we've talked about all the time, of having succession planning to a certain degree, having somebody that can step into a role either in the short term or in the long term if needed down the road, which is why one of the reasons we were moving in this direction. So are there points awarded for that?
Yes.
Or, okay,
So it's been evaluated, but it didn't move.
because we took away the operations points and essentially moved them to the operations director.
Correct.
And then added these to this position.
So you would have seen it previously if we would have downclassed the individual, which is not something that we generally would do in that situation.
Right.
Yeah, so you basically freeze them.
I'm sitting here and anecdotally, I'm thinking, we're having these, the parks employees are doing a lot more from what I've seen and higher quality. I'm just really impressed with them. And I want to make sure that we're structuring this in a way that is going to retain those employees, especially because it has its own funding source, which was the whole idea behind this. And so as we continue to move forward with improving programming and things like that, I'm hearing a lot of positive feedback from people out in the county and in my district specifically, and I don't want to see it go back in the other direction. So again, that's my concern. I know we do these studies to try to find a third party to look at these and give us an equitable response, but sometimes I just scratch my head.
Well, we need to change the study, but since Treasurer Robinson is here, I would make a point that he had a separate funding source as well. And just doing it on the basis of that and increases when it doesn't come through in the study doesn't make the point to do it. What I'm going to recommend in the future, if we ever have additional revenue, is for us to redo our entire study. It's the system right now, as it's set up, that is not equitable across departments that needs to be evaluated. So right now, this is the system.
Yeah.
If we want to veer from that system, then you'd be doing it on the basis of each individual request from a department, setting the salary based on what argument the department makes rather than utilizing a system.
Sure.
So I agree with you 100%, Terrence, and I'm sure that Treasurer would as well. It's frustrating. We're dealing with a system that is so outdated and so harmful to the morale of employees, but this is where we're at. So until we have money to do a study and then do a implementation of that study, not just saying like the last time we did the study, we implemented it and said, we would only implement it on the basis of up to a 3.5% increase, which when you look at somebody who's at the top of their scale and the consultant said they should be at the next grade, and you only give them 3.5%, they only move up, they move to the top, and again, no room for improvement, right? There's just cost of living. So it is a system that is not working for Eaton County and its employees. Broken.
Well, the frustration I have, Connie, quite frequently, I mean, I agree with you, and I'm not saying that we should do it one-off,
Yeah.
but, you know, the idea that this whole discussion about funding sources, I mean, specifically the parks, there was a millage that was passed by the residents of this county to invest in parks. So I hate hearing that the funding from other departments and the general fund funding is really potentially going to hamper that, you know, what the people voted for. It'd be like if we passed a public safety millage or any dedicated millage, our people are saying we want to invest into those specific areas, and I just feel like we're somewhat hamstringed by the funding issues that we have in other areas of the county, and that's where it's a little frustrating to me. I mean, I understand, but
I know, and I understand what you're saying to a point, but again, if you pick a salary structure, then that's what you're following.
Right.
And the Parks Department is in this salary structure. So if you look at the sheriff's office, he has union contracts.
Right.
We bargain differently with the union contracts. Central Dispatch, as a really good example, has a separate funding source, a millage, but it does. But the millage itself is the responsibility of this board. So as everyone is saying, to be good stewards, you have to have a system in place. So you don't just arbitrarily select a dollar amount that impacts what you're spending in a fund. So this, again, was a system that was developed and approved by the board. And as we're having this discussion, I would recommend that in future discussions, we implement a different structure that does what you're saying. You can utilize it in a manner in which you see fit. But right now, you would be veering from that. So,
well, and with the, and I not to belabor this, but the question thinking forward, I guess, is because I heard the comment, like, if there's additional funding, then we could develop a new system. But no matter what happens, you know, if we have to, let's say the millage fails, sorry I had to say that out loud, but let's say that it does, and we have to, you know, adjust staffing at that point in time, don't we still want to go through this process too? Because we still, the people that we retain, I mean, we want to retain the people that we need to retain. And so while we may have less people, we still need to pay the people that we have a marketable wage
sure,
so that we can keep them.
you can do that. And again, I support that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
But you're going to pay for a study,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to say to the employees, we're only going to implement it at this percent because it's all we can afford. Or you're going to implement it 100%. The last time in 2014, had we implemented it fully, it would have cost the county $5 million.
Right, I remember that.
Didn't have that.
Yeah.
So whatever you do so that you don't disappoint and further reduce the morale of our employees, you have to make the commitment. And we're now at the end of a year, so with 6 new commissioners that we know for sure, having this discussion is going to have to be a very serious discussion for any board and any future board. I just don't want us to do something because potentially, you know, you want to.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
This is more of a conversation
No,
than
I
it is
get
me
it.
requesting us to do something.
I get
different.
it.
I'm not suggesting that.
But I love the discussion because it goes to any employee who's listening right now that I'm telling you we have an issue at the county. We've been saying we have an issue. That's why we're not retaining people. It's the bottom line. And again, I can point to the 2 people who are sitting right in the front row that are both elected officials that have experienced that issue within their own departments. So it's frustrating for them and everybody else.
Thank you. And for the discussion. And,
Joe has a comment.
yes, Joe.
Well, if the millage fails, I mean, I've seen, I saw the State Journal article, there's a reference to the number of employees that would be affected. I think that number is low. and I've thought that number is low for quite some time. Even if you go, the reality is, to me, even if you go to, we're only open 3 days a week, we're only open in the mornings for 5 days, you're going to have to pay people to keep them at the 40 hours a week. We're not going to keep a single employee here if we reduce the number of hours that this place is open and available and put them all essentially on what would be 30 hours or 32 hours or 24 hours or basically part-time. So not only are you going to need to pay whoever you keep, or whoever you're able to keep for 40 hours at least, you're going to have to look at what the general market is bearing at this point and get there. I mean, you're not going to have time to do a study and then come back and with the points and all of this. If things go poorly in another month, you're going to have to scramble pretty quickly to identify the people that you have to keep and then find a salary range that will keep them. And if that means that it's a substantial raise for some people, and that's more people that we're going to lose. Frankly, that's where you're going to have to make the adjustment. So, this is all, I understand, and I do think that a salary study should be done. I do think we need, if the revenue is there, to bring our people to par with the rest of the surrounding area. We need to be competitive in all the departments. But if things go poorly, that's all out the window. You're going to have to figure out who you absolutely have to have. And I'll use as an example the sheriff's department. We have to have the people in the jail. Got to. Okay? We're mandated to run that jail. And then we're going to have to figure out what we're going to have to pay them to keep them. But the idea that if we reduce the number of hours that we're open, we save money because we save on salary, we're not going to save on salary. I think we have to recognize that.
You're not, and to another point with that, you're going to have people who are working 3 times to 4 times as hard. And they're not, even if you give them a salary boost, they're not gonna wanna stay. And I say that now because our employees are overworked in offices that are small and in general in offices. And so they're going to leave because they can go to another county because they've got skills and they're gonna want them. They can go to the state and they're gonna do less work, a lot less work. And we've heard it from everyone that they're doing less work. So we're gonna have a problem regardless of where we're at. So to Commissioner Brailer's point, it's not looking good with that, with respect to our employees.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing is just to say that staff is already, like Connie said, very, very overworked. But as we look at November 5th, administration is having to try to map out multiple paths forward in whatever eventuality, and that is a ton of work. And as an outsider coming in, Eaton County was staffed just to keep the boat moving. There wasn't a lot of, there wasn't fat to trim, there wasn't positions added so that you could, evaluate 3 different methods forward. We would just chart what we thought was the best one and we'd move forward. But so we're having to function way outside our weight class right now. And so as we have these discussions, know everything that we just talked about, those are dozens, if not hundreds of staff hours. And like Connie and Commissioner Brailer said, it does not look pretty on the outside of a November outcome. That's not, yeah.
Okay.
That
Back
was
to the
depressing.
agenda. We have these positioned restructures. They're not in the budget. Are we ready to move the positions and do the budget and have budget amendments? The amendments aren't in there either.
Yeah, I don't know that we would need the amendments, depending on changes. I mean, we're only in October, so I don't think we'll need them. But we would do those later in the year if we needed it for wages. That's the only thing that you'd have to increase. You're talking $4,000 in each of those areas, so.
Yes, and by moving moving the restructure, we're creating new positions and get rid of, or changing positions.
Just
What-
changing positions, you didn't add a position.
Do we need to even, so what do we
You
need to
just
do?
move the recommendation of the consultant, and it just has to be done through this committee.
So moved.
Support.
Commissioner DeRosa?
I have one last comment. When does this change become effective?
Today.
Today, okay, thank you.
Okay, moved by
Terrence and me.
Augustine, supported by Lassenheiser. Any more comments or questions about these positions? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. All right, vision, dental, and health renewals.
Right. So I'll give a bidding update and kind of an overarching update, but as is Eaton County's practice, we go out for bid. This year we do this every 3 years to make sure we're not potentially overpaying for insurance coverages. There was a delay in receiving rate renewals that hindered our ability to evaluate them, so we don't have the figures and staff recommendation because we just got them yesterday around 1:30
For all
updated.
three of them? We don't even have the health yet, right?
Correct. So, yeah, health was the last one. Part of the delay was we removed the GLP-1 elective lifestyle medications for weight loss. So the rates updating showing that adjusted savings is what we were waiting on. But I'll go through and outline just who bidded, or, kind of generally what the bid process looked like. And then in November, we'll have detailed analysis and recommendations on steps forward. Part of this delay, we will likely delay open enrollment by 3 weeks. So once we have a chance to sink our teeth into it, we'll communicate with employees, with unions, and with board members. But the plan would be to take action on this next month, and we would still implement the plans on January 1st. It's just on our end, we'll have 3 weeks less to process paperwork, so.
Okay.
Health insurance, Brown & Brown on our behalf solicited 6 carriers in Michigan. 4 declined to bid outright, 2 declared their intention to bid, but only Blue Cross Blue Shield actually submitted a bid in spite of multiple follow-ups with the other provider. So we will be recommending renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield because they're the only ones that submitted through the RFP process, but we'll still need to evaluate the rates. Dental insurance, Brown & Brown solicited 7 dental insurance carriers in Michigan. 5 declined to bid outright. 2 submitted bids we're currently evaluating. Vision, we had 7 that we requested bids from. 4 declined, 3 submitted, and we're evaluating. Medicare Advantage, we solicited 3 carriers in Michigan. 1 declined outright, 2 submitted bids. We're currently 6 months into a 30-month rate guarantee with Blue Cross Blue Shield on our Medicare Advantage plan. So we're still haven't gotten to evaluate it, but it'd have to be a really screaming deal probably to go through the trouble of switching. The other provider was Humana. Yeah. So
On the Medicare Advantage plans, what is our, is there a self-funded portion of that, or no?
we used to
It
be
doesn't seem like logically
self-funded.
there would be.
Yep.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep. So we used to be self-funded, and at that, our assets to liability was like 31%. We switched over to Medicare Advantage, which is the premium model. So that 30-month rate lock is actually really good for us. Also, the federal government, through the Inflation Reduction Act and some other, have made changes to Medicare Advantage plans. So most other employers that weren't price locked had 15 to 18% hikes on their Medicare Advantage plans to the benefit of retirees. There's caps on insulin, there's reductions in out-of-pocket max and stuff. But so for us, we're on a 30-month lock. We're not even 6 months into it. So that's where that's at. But we'll have a final recommendation after we evaluate the Humana coverage compared to Blue Cross. So no action.
Okay, so we're just moving forward. We're a little bit late this year. And come November, we need to get going so our employees can start enrolling.
That's
Joe.
it.
You, You talked about how the administration is looking at various pathways to go if things don't work out in November. Have we looked at the cost of health insurance? And I know we have negotiated contracts with the unions, and those include healthcare. But we have, in terms of the staff, we have quite a few people who aren't represented. Have we looked at what the potential savings would be if we didn't provide health care?
Can add it to the stack. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'll say,
You know, I've been here for quite
Yeah.
a while, and people, as I get closer and closer to the end, remind me more and more of how long I've been here. But be that as, and I've been a champion for healthcare from the very first day I walked in here. And it is not something that I throw out there lightly. I mean, you're talking about if things go poorly, and I reference my previous remarks, the number of people who are gonna have to go is substantial. And, you know, I think we're constrained by the union contracts, certainly in some areas, but in others, I don't know if there's significant savings there. I weigh that with the idea that if I go to someone who I desperately think I have to keep and say to them, oh, by the way, I'm willing to pay you X amount of money more than what I'm paying you now to keep you, but I'm not gonna provide health care, that trade-off. But if things go poorly, everything is gonna need to be on the table because this county is going to be that close to bankruptcy. If the financial projections that you people have given us for the last year and a half, 2 years, are true, and I have no question that they are, we're that close to bankruptcy.
yeah, I would say the Affordable Care Act and how that would relate to that conversation would be something that we'd have to look at. Maybe like some kind of stipend, or I don't know. So we can definitely look into that. But I would say the other thing is PA 152 is built into all of our union contracts. So I think as we evaluate the cost sharing that is, statutorily established is one mechanism that we'll probably have to have discussions on next month. But you're right. I mean, there's a lot on the line. We've talked about the fund balance being, I think, a little over 3 million at the end of the year based on this budget, and that's not even 1 month of expenses at the county. So I think sometimes people have this idea, well, you can get to the end of the year, but in what reality would it be responsible to carry through to the end of the year and not even have a month's worth of expenses? For people who have that opinion, you would probably not do that in your own personal budget, let alone a unit of government. Yeah.
Well, the last thing we want is an emergency manager here, because then all bets are off. The union contracts are off, everything's off. If the example that Detroit was 15 years ago or whenever it was, pensions, healthcare, union contracts, everything. And, we would need, I think, very much want to avoid, and we would need to do everything we possibly could to prevent the idea that an emergency manager would come here and take over. But that's a very real possibility if we're looking at being bankrupt.
Okay.
I'm just full of all kinds of cheery comments tomorrow, and I'm just getting started.
And I'm just finishing, so thank you.
All right. So anything else, Ben?
Nope, all good.
Okay. Finance Director, Melissa?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I will start with our audit corrective action plan update. So we continue in my office to work towards our fiscal year end, and obviously this is the first of the new fiscal year. So the first month of doing cleanup and journal entries and all of the fiscal year end activities that are necessary for closing our books. So we are actively working on this. We are working with a contracted accounting firm for some of our assistants, so we can have a nice clean audit report as well. That's about it that I can report at the moment on that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I will move on to our health insurance reports. So I do have an updated projection for the health insurance reports, including all of the August invoices that have processed. September is still a estimated amount, so it is not finalized at all yet. So as you can see, we are projecting a fund deficit. However, last month, the board did approve a budget amendment of up to a certain dollar amount from ARP revenues. So I believe that that should cover that for now.
So the 142 deficit isn't finalized, but is it pretty realistic that that's where it's going to land? Are you feeling like, we're at the end here?
Yes, I believe that that will be where we end up.
Okay.
So that, the fund balance from the ARP, from the interest revenues, that will carry this fund through.
Okay. So this is the second year in a row that we actually ended up with a red fund balance, or negative.
I believe
Third year.
this is the third year, I believe. So,
Thank you.
I did also include the retirees' health report, which shows Medicare Advantage information, the expenses for Medicare Advantage in there. As you can see, we have significantly decreased from the beginning of the fiscal year for the number of retirees or number of active employees that are contributing. That has gone down from 66 at the beginning of the fiscal year down to 58, and that was through the end of September. We are now down 3 more individuals, so we will start the current fiscal year with 55 contributing.
So we've really passed the old tipping point, that we no longer have, we have very few people contributing and a lot of people using. And-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, so we will continue to monitor that, and obviously the active employees, they do not contribute, however, the county contributes on their behalf, and that is eligible for reimbursement from other grants. So we continue to make sure that that's appropriate. So, are there any questions on the health insurance reports or the retirees' health stuff?
Just a reminder, what was after the change, the forecasted funding ratio for retirees' health? What did that take us to? I can't remember. Was it 60?
It took us to I think it was 71,
And then it was-
70.5.
And then
Yes.
we reevaluated up to 82, and the last point I didn't make, but even if we stay Blue Cross in our 30-month, at the end of that, we can expect a significant increase going in the future. So that 82 is kind of a soft number because it's a premium-based, right? So if 2.5 years from now, we renew and it's a 25% increase, that 82 is going to drop, right? Because our assets will now get spread out over a larger premium. So I know people hear that 82 and they're like, that's amazing. Here's what you should do with that money. And it's like, okay, but we're purchasing it differently than we ever did before. So know that that 82 is subject to whatever the renewal rate is. And it's going to be a big one. But that's a future board's problem. So yeah. Sorry.
Well, it's hard.
It'll probably be more. Yeah.
It's hard to project that anyway, because I've read that one of the political parties in the election is looking at changing the Affordable Care Act to decrease regulations, is what they say they want to do, and they want to make it more market-based. And so a lot of what we're doing today is within the confines of the federal acts that we have now. If that party takes power and makes the changes they want to make, I suspect it will be more expensive for organizations like this to provide healthcare, certainly retiree healthcare. So that's another factor that we're going to have to perhaps confront.
Okay.
Child Care Fund report.
I
So.
don't have anything negatives or down, I don't have anything to bring everybody down about childcare, so go ahead.
Anything bad about the children?
So I want to start out my reports by letting the committee know that the Raise the Age program, it did end as of September 30 of 2024. However, because of our expansion and the ongoing efforts to get that finalized, they did allow us an extension. So they extended the funding through the end of this month so that we can get our project completed and all of our expenses submitted. So I just want to make sure that the committee is aware of that. So thank you for your efforts on that. I know that that was a last-minute worry that we didn't want. So I do have the Child Care Fund report, and as you can see, we are trending pretty similar to prior month. Nothing substantially has changed. And if there are no questions, that concludes my reports.
Okay. Any questions for Melissa? Thank you. Chad? Public improvement.
Good morning.
Only cheerful news, Chad.
Pardon?
Only cheerful news this morning.
I've got some good news. So I'll go through our month, our last month here. It's been pretty busy, wrapping up our end of the year stuff, similar to what Melissa was talking about with her department. We try to get everything closed out, all of our internal maintenance projects and so forth. I guess I do have a bit of bad news, but we discovered a water leak over at between the health department and DHS. Repairing that water leak, we hit a gas line, or the construction crew hit the gas line. It's all been repaired. That happened on September 17th, right around noon. We did have to evacuate those 5 buildings over there. And it was mismarked by the state, misdig, by about 4 feet. So we were in compliance, but they missed it a little bit. The water leak is fixed, as well as the gas line, so, not the water leak, but the gas, they are. So yeah, that was excitement for the day. Obviously, the fire department was here, and we made everything safe and secure. And so moving on to the youth facility expansion, as Melissa had mentioned, we did seek and were awarded a grant or a extension for the project. That was about some last minute issues we had with the Bureau of Fire Services, which is another state agency who gives us the final inspections on fire alarm and fire suppression. We had to jump through some additional hoops that I won't get into all of it, but it was pretty frustrating with the state fire marshal's office.
I want to thank Representative Whitwer for the work that she did on helping us with that. Her office has really made some significant assistance for that, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely. That was instrumental in us being able to get the extension and help with expediting the process with the Bureau of Fire Services. Essentially, late last month, we ran into getting our final inspections, which kind of put everything on hold for part of the building. So we lost a couple weeks there, but are moving along now and anticipated to be complete, ready to turn over everything by 23rd, 25th of the month. So everything's on target. They've removed the construction trailer and site fencing, so when we're over there, you'll notice that's gone, cleaning up the lot, and then beginning today, actually, we're paving the lots, and then Courthouse Drive will be also addressed as part of the project next week, resurfacing. So we did some damage to it, bringing all the heavy equipment in and the big trucks with the precast walls, so we're gonna repair that road. And the ribbon cutting for the building is next Wednesday at 5 PM. And I just note that it's not open to the public. It's a closed celebration, I guess. Other than that, I know in the packet, do you want me to talk about the public improvement? There's,
Before you go on, Chad, that ribbon cutting, will there be tours there too at that time, or should
Yes.
we get, okay, all right, thank you.
in the packet, the Public Improvement Fund, I believe, last year and this year's is included. And you'll see we've, picked a lot of things off of that list, and it drops substantially, what we have to work with going into, 24, 25, so. A lot of those were big projects that we completed, but some of the stuff we just had to cut because of, to balance the budget, so.
And there are generally, when you see a project that's not complete, we would roll that into the next fiscal year. So this includes technology and facilities, and both Eric and Chad do have projects, but we will not be looking at those without additional revenue. So for the departments in which both Chad or Eric couldn't get anything done, those are going to be put on hold, which is frustrating to departments, but they're both, you know, dealing with shorter staff and a lot of additional work.
That's all I have. If there's any questions,
Any questions? Thank you, Chad.
thank you.
See you on Wednesday night,
Yes.
5 o'clock. 2 hours before our regular meeting.
Sorry.
I think that's a good idea. I'm just thinking about what we have to do. Time for a food truck. Okay, budget amendments. There's only one in there. Or are there more?
No, there's only one amendment, and this was a piece of equipment that failed in the Register of Deeds office that they have to replace, and that is what the Technology Fund for Deeds is there for. And I believe there's about a $70,000 balance in that fund to cover that.
I'll move the amendment. Just a question, though, are we,
Still have micro?
yeah, that's what I was gonna, is this to get that into digital form? Is that what that's for, or
What are we
what?
talking about here
It's-
anyway?
Yeah, it's the requirement that you have to scan the way that the deeds have to be completed. So if Diana were here,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm sure it's needed.
What? Okay, it's been moved and for the budget amendments by whom?
I don't know.
DeRosa and Terrence? I know those.
Stan and DeRosa seconded.
Okay. Terrence moved, DeRosa seconded. Let me get the order right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Expiring appointments are in front of you.
Yeah, so the appointments, the Historical Commission and the Building Authority appointments, which we do not need the Building Authority appointment, but we have to have it, are all being contacted to see if they are still interested in serving. And the Land Bank Authority is vacant. It has to be from the county's largest city, which is the city of Charlotte. And I do know that we don't have any applications yet, and I'm hoping Treasurer Robinson is searching still, and he's nodding his head, so yes. Thank you. City. Yeah. Population, right? Or Delta's not, yeah, it's a charter township.
Grand Ledge is almost as big as,
Oh, well, then maybe it is square. Charlotte. Yeah. Okay.
okay, thank you for that. No. We- You mean on the budget resolution amendments? We're done, we did that.
There's no miscellaneous, and then we just have bills.
Okay, Latzenheiser wants to pay the bills. Supported by DeRosa. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. This has been a fun meeting. I suspect next Ways and Means will be more
One way or the other.
interesting.
Don't forget, Mr. Chair, I know it's on the back of the agenda, but there's a public
Public
comment.
comment. Thank you. I just flipped over my agenda. Yes. Hold up. You're in public comment. Any public?
Morning, Commissioners.
Hey, Tom.
I want to thank all the commissioners for their intestinal fortitude on getting this proposal on the ballot. It's something that's been needed for years, and it's finally being done. We're in the last days of crunch time, and I hope this does pass. But with that, I'd like to commend Controller Sobey's office and her staff. They've done an excellent job. Chairman Mott, he's always there with a smile, does a great job. Doug Lloyd is there, and I've been even seeing some judges there and making comments. So it's kind of nice that we're all in uniform, but it's nice. My deputies are nervous. They've made comments to me and asked me what's going to happen. I don't know. It scares me to death. People out there need public safety, and we're just one arm of 3 departments that can provide that. So with that, 30 days, less than 30 days, we'll know. But I think the credit goes to you folks, as well as Connie Sobey's office and her staff. They've done a wonderful job.
You've been at the meetings, and we all appreciate that. And the staff, it's never happened before at this county that our staff has reached out to the locals and been involved and engaged with the locals. And the locals really appreciate it. They just have not seen their county step out and interact with them. And I really am getting the feedback from the locals that that's appreciated and really they understand where we're at. So
I agree.
been hard work, so.
We will be doing that going forward regardless, so that they know what's going on with the county. So we've talked about it internally. Commissioners do go, but having staff there to go through, you know, what the county's doing and what we can do to help them, we'll be doing that.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Sheriff. Commissioner Rogers?
I got 2 things.
You bet.
Is tomorrow, Hamlin Township will be having an open house in the fire department celebration, and it would be, they have something for the whole family. It's worth your going and seeing. It's the health fair, plus, you know, they get a chance to sit in a fire truck. Usually the sheriff has a car there, and they get to sit in the sheriff's car. And it's part inside, part outside, and it's from 11 to 4, and I think you would find it very interesting, in your family worthwhile, to attend.
Thank you. Any other thing?
Is, I would like to thank Connie and the prosecuting attorney for being at Hamlin Township Board meeting Wednesday night and explaining the needs. And, we wanted to talk to any of my constituents that have heard me. I make no bones about it. How I'm voting, and it's not a want, it's a need
Correct.
for the extra money.
I've had those same discussions with people, you know, who are astute and they understand finances and they've really drilled into it. And after they drill a little bit, and as we talk to them, my experience is that a lot of them have come around and understood the need. At first blush, people just don't understand it, and you need to talk to them. We're all doing that, and I appreciate the hard work. So, very positive, but got to keep going at it. Any other comments? Okay. Oh, yes, Frank.
I would say the negative. I heard a guy who sits in a restaurant around a round table and hears all kind of information, in the group I was with, he's saying that's deceptive because the ballot language does not say it's an increase. You got to help them understand that it's not on the ballot written that way by our choice, and have them look, just get information. That's what I tell them. Go be informed voter.
And it's hard to even tell them why the ballot language is that way. And it makes sense to me because we're the ultimate deciding body, We're the ones that levy the taxes. And so it only sets our limits. It doesn't tell us what to levy. That's what this body does. We levy the taxes, but we're limited and that's, again, people don't really appreciate or understand the details and the finer points of how their government works. And that's our job to explain it sometimes.
I guess one more comment, because I make it very plain, Sheriff, your only responsibility is to maintain a jail. And if you want road patrols, you better vote for the millage.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll see you on Wednesday at 5.